Yo, what is up guys? It's me, it's NLG here, and I am back for the first time in around a year for episode 1 of a local to global series. I did a local to global series a couple of years ago on TW 2016, and it was probably the longest series and the most fun I've had in a series, and today we return to the channel with one of those. A different company this time. We'll leave the memories alone with NYCW, but if you'd like to check out NYCW, then you can. The playlist will be in the channel with all 40 plus episodes. This local to global is based in the tri-state area, just like New York City Wrestling was, and we will be debuting in the Voltage Lounge in Philadelphia. We have a card of around 7 matches. I would usually show the roster before we run those 7 matches, but we're going to look to keep the card a mystery, which means we have to keep the roster a mystery. So that is the plan there, and then we'll show the rest of the roster after we run the show, because obviously not everyone's on the first card, or else we would just be hemorrhaging money. We are expected to have just under 100 fans at first, so that's not too bad. Let's see how many we do get in for this show. We kick things off in front of 98 people in the Voltage Lounge with our opening bout, where in a bout that had good wrestling and a decent reaction from the crowd, Jimmy Wang defeats Little Guido in 12:26 via pinfall with a corkscrew moonsault. This only got a 30. Jimmy Wang pulled a 39 to Little Guido's poor 25. Wang Yang's definitely a real yeehaw boy, gets a great rating, and Little Guido's definitely a real Italian gimmick, gets an initial rating of very good. Now, as you can see at the bottom, this started a storyline between Guido and Wang Yang. Now, these two men, of course, for those of you who are familiar, are former members of WWE's Cruiserweight division, arguably two of the most underrated and underutilized junior heavyweight competitors of the 2000s. Of course, Jimmy got to have a bit of recognition when he would perform in Ring of Honor, and Little Guido's recognition mainly came at a time before that whilst competing in ECW. Two very underrated and underutilized talents that I am very much a fan of. I think if you gave them 12 minutes 26 seconds, well, maybe it's 14, probably 15, 16, 17 years ago, I think that's when they would have had the best match. But even in the early 2000s, I think they would have had a fantastic match, and quite a good one towards the end of the 2000s as well. But even in 2022, Jimmy Wang Yang pulling a 39, a great rating. Both of them essentially running their characters that they were using towards the latter stages of their tenures within WWE. Wang Yang, of course, a fan favourite cowboy. He was quite popular despite never really getting a push, because it's just one of those gimmicks that people like, you know, a fun fan favourite underdog. Little Guido is the heel in this matchup. Just going to try to explain the characters and how we're using people very briefly in this episode, just so we know what's happening rather than just names on a screen. But yeah, Little Guido, he's still that man that he always was, that angry Italian man, and he couldn't get the job done here tonight. But after the match, he beats down Jimmy Wang Yang, he lays him out, and then who should come out but the Prince of Punk, Shannon Moore. Shannon Moore scares him away, of course. Shannon Moore and Jimmy Wang Yang had a bit of a tandem, a little bit of a pairing around 2007, 2008, even defeating the likes of The Miz and Morrison in straight up tag team action on the WWE broadcasts. They reunite here as Shannon Moore scares Little Guido away, and the WWE 2007 Cruiserweight title picture reunites. Shannon Moore isn't even booked tonight. He's not on the card, which is very interesting to see him show up. In all honesty, he was pre-booked to show up, and then I just couldn't fit him in a match, and then I went to remove him, but I was going to get a penalty because he'd been pre-booked, and I thought a $30 hit isn't worth it. Also, like, Shannon Moore and Jimmy Wang Yang are both on like $30 per show, which is mental when you consider that they are former WWE superstars. Little Guido clearly enjoyed having the freedom to go off script and performed well despite the fact that there was no script. We then advance to our second bout of the night, where in a bout that had superb wrestling and good heat, Shane Mercer defeated Jigsaw in 12:03, tapping out Jigsaw. Shane Mercer's machine gimmick was rated as being awful, whereas Jigsaw's definitely a real puzzle gimmick gets an initial rating of great. Both men performed in the low 40s there, but they do have pretty good chemistry, which means in the future we can obviously go back to this. Shane Mercer's a man who I've heard of from his time performing in GCW. Of course, a year ago I did run a critically acclaimed GCW series, so if you'd like to check that out, go for it. It was fantastic time. It lasted a long time and it was a huge hit. Jigsaw there may be known by some for his time in Chikara and Ring of Honor in the late 2000s to very early 2010s. He even had a mini excursion to British wrestling in the mid 2010s right before that really hit the fan and went to the shit. But yeah, Shane Mercer is someone who I've seen many people talk about as being very underrated and one of those people on the indies that maybe could be signed by now. He's a very skilled worker there, getting to 44 and picking up a big win over Jigsaw there. A brutal victory, a typical babyface versus heel matchup. Shane Mercer being a little bit bigger, well, a bit bigger to be fair, and just being merciless there with the underdog veteran Jigsaw. Following this, we have a bout that had great wrestling and good heat, which sees former tag team partners Andrew Everett and Colby Carino match up, as Everett defeats Colby Carino in 14:44 with a shooting star press. The game says toe touch moonsault, but sometimes computers lie. Andrew Everett gets a 39 to Colby's 43. I feel like Everett's a bit underrated there. A guy who's just recently moved over, well, not moved over, but made his way over to DDT in Japan and returned to Impact, which is good. He's someone who deserves a break. He's a very good high flyer. I remember the first time I saw him was when I was watching Ring of Honor. I remember they would upload their television product every week to their website, and this would have been, 2013-14. He had a match. And I remember thinking, wow, this guy's a lot like Adrian Neville at the time. Granted, they did have, long hair, bit muscular, fan favourite high flyer. They even wore relatively similar gear at the time, so it was an easy comparison to make. But, to be a high flyer and be compared to the likes of Pac, you've got to be very good to get that comparison. Because if he looked crap, it just wouldn't work. But he's been very, very good for a long time. And it's nice to see him start to get some progress made towards getting the recognition he deserves. He's a fantastic wrestler, as Andrew Everett, and he starts by defeating his old tag team partner Colby Carino. After the match, the pair of them shake hands. But yeah, Everett's definitely a real giant gimmick. Gets an initial rating of very good to Colby Carino's ugly duckling gimmick, which gets an initial rating of great. Colby Carino, a man who recently fought his father, Steve Carino, in a match that was very well received online. I've not gone around to watching it, but it did sound quite good. And Colby Carino himself was in Ring of Honor around that time as a member of the Decade. He's been around a while and never quite had that big break. Maybe Wrestling in Promotions NLG could be that break for him. Probably not if he's losing in his first match in the company, but you never know. And of course, this show in front of 98 people. I can't remember if I did mention that before, but 98 people just witnessed a very good match with great wrestling and good heat. And I think that's nice for them. Next up, we have women's action as Masha Slamovic draws with Sky Blue in 8-11 following a double countout. They have great chemistry, which shows in their performances. I'm really pleased to see that, actually, because as you can see, their storyline has started with this segment. Both of their gimmicks get an initial rating of very good. Sky Blue with a 29 and Masha's 37. Masha Slamovic, someone who's, again, very well received. We've got a lot of people who are either young prospects that have potential to break out, or just wrestlers who haven't quite had the opportunity presented to them where they can break out. So we've got a lot of people on the cusp of greatness, I would say. Kind of like how NXT used to be the stars of tomorrow today. I think that could be Promotions NLG too. The match goes to a double count out, so basically the two of them lock up early on. Masha is very aggressive, she's brutal, she's merciless, she is an ice cold killer. And she takes the fight to Sky Blue, ground and pound. Sky Blue starts getting some offense. Masha doesn't like it, and she's very disrespectful. I don't know if anyone remembers, but back in the old WWE SmackDown versus Raw games is where I first saw this, where if you were Chris Jericho, you'd have that move where you would just brush the opponent's face with his boot. Not enough wrestlers do that, but that's the type of offense that Masha's doing to Sky Blue. She's very disrespectful and disregarding the threat of Sky Blue as an opponent. In the end, they go to the outside, they brawl around the venue, and they brawl at the back. It's a double count out, which is a shame. You know, the fans came to see a definitive finish, but those fans are going to get a rematch in the near future between these. This feud can't end like that. We need definitive winners here in Promotions NLG, and that is something that we will get in the future. Next up, in a bout that had great wrestling and decent reaction from the crowd, Darius Lockhart is defeated by Space Monkey in 12:32 via pinfall with a tail whip. Darius Lockhart with a 38 to Space Monkey's 41. Both people's gimmicks get an initial rating of great, with Darius as being the revolutionary and Space Monkey's being the intergalactic primate. Darius Lockhart making his debut in the channel there. A good effort, a very, very valiant effort. I was meant to make some time to actually watch his matches, because I've only ever seen of him as being a very charismatic person, but I've never been able to watch him wrestle yet. Seen promos, seen stuff from online, but never a match. So he did lose. Maybe if I'd seen him before, he'd get a win, but I'll make sure to have seen the likes of him and someone in the main event who I've not quite had the chance to watch wrestle just yet, who you'll be seeing later on the episode. We'll make sure those people have had their matches watched in the future, just before the next episode, so that we can book them a bit better, you know, so we can understand who they are as competitors, how they fight, and how they carry themselves in promos to make for the best content possible. But yeah, Darius Lockhart's defeated by Space Monkey, who was original in New York City Wrestling in the local to global series back a couple years ago on TW 2016. I believe he may have even been a tag team champion potentially in that series. Can he have similar luck and fortune here in Promotions NLG? Only time will tell, but starting off with a win, that's the best way to go about it. Next up, we have tag team action. It's in a bout that had great wrestling and decent reaction from the crowd. Grindhouse, the team of Davey Vega and Matt Fitchett, defeat Vaughn Vertigo and Gabriel Fuerza, who make up Fight or Flight, in 12:51 when Matt Fitchett pins Gabriel Fuerza via the Rock and Ruck knee. This gets a 34. The gimmicks are quite good and very good. Fuerza and Matt Fitchett both seem off their game and really off their game. Matt Fitchett still manages to get 44. Davey Vega with a 47 despite breaking his wrist. Very impressive there from one half of the former besties in the world. Now this is a bit of an interesting one, because Vega and Matt Fitchett were also members of NYCW. I believe Matt Fitchett may have even won the heavyweight championship in that, but don't quote me on that. Fight or Flight weren't quite in that. They're a Canadian tag team who are very impressive. I know Vaughn Vertigo's impressed people all over the world, competing across Europe very impressively. Matt Fitchett has gone on to become AAW heavyweight champion in recent times. A very underutilized talent he was for some time, but it seems that he's getting his recognition now. The besties in the world, well now Grindhouse, I do keep making that mistake. They did manage to make the way to AEW, but they weren't picked up, which I think is a bit of an error, because they are a fantastic tag team. I think they'd work great in Impact or Ring of Honor. Even MLW as a tag team, a very, very good tandem. And again, little Guido telling us that Davey Vega has sustained a broken wrist. Hashtag pray for Davey. After that, Sky High, we saw them fight earlier tonight. They come out of the ring. They shook hands following the match, in which, of course, Andrew Everett was successful. And they issue a challenge to Grindhouse. They want to beat the very best. They want to beat Grindhouse. It's as simple as that. Andrew Everett talks about his respect for the besties in the world. He wants to be recognised as being the best at what he does. And that's what Grindhouse are. They are the best tag team in the company. One of the best tag teams on the North American independent wrestling circuit. If you want to be the best, you've got to beat the best. And that's what Sky High want to do. They issue the challenge. They shake hands with Grindhouse. Both teams leave the ring quite happy. The challenge is made. The challenge is set at our second event, which will come in episode 2. It will be Grindhouse versus Sky High, which is an interesting one. I've got to say, I think the betting odds would favour Grindhouse there. You know, Sky High would be the underdogs, but of course, maybe worth a bit of a punt. But obviously, Sky High haven't teamed in a long time, whereas Grindhouse still team quite regularly. And I think you've got to give it to Grindhouse there. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, it is our main event, which gets a 30. Somehow it should have got more. And about that had great wrestling and a decent reaction from the crowd. Speedball Mike Bailey, the man who has gone on to become Impact Wrestling's X Division champion, defeats Cashflow Ken Broadway, a man who's been competing in the tri-state wrestling circuit for a number of years now. He's really started to break out in recent times. I know he's a focal point of Amazing Red's House of Glory promotion. He takes Mike Bailey to his absolute limits, goes 19 minutes against one of the best junior heavyweights walking the globe. But in the end, Mike Bailey catches Broadway. Broadway got cocky. Bailey drops him with a kick to the head, pulls himself up rapidly on sheer adrenaline and instinct to the top rope. And as Broadway's getting up, kabam! Pow! Wahoo! He hits him with a shooting star knee drop to the back of the skull. Down goes Broadway. He crumples unconscious. 1, 2, 3. And Speedball Mike Bailey leaves. You signed up for this, our inaugural event. Victorious with his arm in the air. Gets a 49 to Broadway's 30. Mike Bailey, the star of the night, and rightly so. He is a fantastic competitor. I really can't speak highly of that man. And then after the match, Shane Mercer ambushes Mike Bailey. Shane Mercer, one of the people based in this kind of area. You know, he's really made his name working in the tri-state promotion, such as GCW. He ambushes Mike Bailey. He doesn't like that he's on the undercard when Mike Bailey, someone who's not even from here, he's not a tri-state guy. He didn't build this scene. He's just here for a payday. This is Shane Mercer's life. For Mike Bailey, this is just another day. He hates that Mike Bailey got the main event. That should have been Shane Mercer in the main event. That's what he believes. He lays out Speedball Mike Bailey, stands above him as the show ends. The crowd, the audience who've been happy all night, they boo Shane Mercer furiously. They are enraged at the lack of respect, the outrageous actions from Shane Mercer as we close off the show with a 33, increasing our popularity in one region. We will compliment Shane Mercer. He got a 44 in his match. Mike Bailey will get praised, and we will praise Davey Vega, who got a 47, almost got rating of the night despite breaking his wrist in his bout on the card. But yeah, that's the first show. Obviously, we do need to have a quick look at the roster, so we'll just talk through this because I'm not going to lie, it's 11:15. I really can't be bothered to edit this. We're in the middle of a heat wave over here in England. It is boiling hot. I hate how hot it is. It's a bit unnecessary. But you know what else is hot? You know what's red hot? Promotions NLG. A very good first show there. And of course, we're building towards the future. Shane Mercer versus Mike Bailey in the future. We're going to have Sky High, the pairing of Andrew Everett and Colby Carino, battling against Grindhouse's Davey Vega and Matt Fitchett. We're going to have a rematch in the near future between Masha Slamovic and Sky Blue in the near future. But before that, we will be having tag team action. I think on the next show, it'll be Grindhouse versus Sky High. And we're also going to see how Masha Slamovic and Sky Blue fare in tag team action against the team of Ashley Vox and Delmi Exo, Team C Stars. As you can see, we do have people here on the roster who didn't debut tonight. Obviously, Ashley Vox and Delmi Exo, as just mentioned there. A very good tag team. Of course, Kit Osborne, who has competed in MLW before as Rip Von Erich. I didn't get that reference at first. It took me way longer than I'm willing to admit to realise Rip Von Erich. We also have Matt Mikowski, who's out with a torn ACL. Someone I've only seen a handful of times, but I remember watching him in his match at Bloodsport in 2021. He battled Hedy Coroy. I can't remember how that's pronounced, but it was a French competitor, competes mainly in Mexico. Fantastic short little match. One of the most fun matches I'd seen in a long time. He will be fighting here once he returns from his ACL tear. We have Shane Saber, who is the tag team partner of Space Monkey. As a tandem, they make up Space Pirates. Of course, Shannon Moore wasn't in the ring, but he is here in the organisation. Of course, says Cool. Why does it say Cool Momentum? All he did was save someone from getting beat down. Aside from wrestling, Shannon Moore is a tattoo artist and owns a tattoo parlour called Gas Chamber Inc. Isn't that delightful? Wow, how lovely. If anyone's wondering who's on the shortlist, we have an array of talent. We have some big names like Alex Shelley, and we have big names like Daniel Garcia and Eddie Kingston, who I would both love to bring in. I'm a huge fan of Eddie Kingston. We have Jazzy Yang, who I'd love to bring in, but she's based in Southeast. I'm not flying her over to New York. Layla Hirsch, who would be great to bring in, but she's got a torn ACL. She's surprisingly cheap. By the time she recovers, we might just be able to afford $100 a show for legit Layla Hirsch. Stevie Richards, only $60. He should have a picture. Would he come out of retirement? Damn it, Stevie Richards would have been great to book. And there's a lot of people I like here. Shane Taylor's quite good. The French tickler Rene Dupree. M-Dog Matt Cross. Lindsay Dorado. Loki's got to be in at some point because it's New York, isn't it? Kylie Ray's only 130. JT Dunn's only 60. We need to find a role for him. Joe Doring's only 100. Former All Japan Triple Crown champion. Jay Freddy, $30. Jake something. So as I said, there's some excellent talent. And of course, the King of New York, Homicide. So yeah, there's a lot of people we're looking to bring in. If there's anyone you would like to see us bring in, then do let me know in the comments down below and I'll check them out. If it's someone who's mainly we're looking to get people mainly based out of this area or spillover. Spillover for us is New England, Mid-Atlantic, Great Lakes, Ontario, and Quebec, and of course, primarily the tri-state region. So primarily people that are based in those areas of the United States and Canada. If they are someone that's from mainly like a Chikara organisation, I'm not going to know who the works. I never really did pay much attention to Chikara, but I will happily check them out if you guys do believe they'd be a good fit for the roster. Last month we made $2,000, which shows that we could probably actually afford some of those $80, $90 talents now. Because if you look here, we've got some people who are on a bit of money. We may just be able to fill out the roster a little bit and get some of those $80, $90, $100 per show fighters in. If there's anyone you guys want to see, any matches, if you've got any potential ideas for characters, feuds, or even pairings, then do let me know again in the comments below. As for now, I have been NLG. I hope you've had a lovely time watching this, and I hope to see you all very, very shortly in the future for some more Promotions NLG.